right, it's Open Lines. We'll start with the people who've been hanging on the longest. And here, let me refresh my screen to make sure I get everybody in order. And we'll go with Richard in Connecticut on Coast to Coast.
Good evening, Ian.
Good evening.
Definitely enjoyed your first guest.
Well, good. Yeah, he was awesome. Harvey's always good. He's a. I was excited when I heard that the new book had finally come out. It's always fun when recurring guests have come on and their work just gets better and better. And Harvey is one of those guys.
Well, he definitely picked the right subjects to write about. I mean, it's endless.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask your opinion on why you think the HBO series that Jagger was involved in didn't last.
You know, I think if I'm thinking of the same thing you are, I thought it was kind of forced. It just seemed kind of manufactured. That's the thing about the Stones. I mean, I don't know. Tell me what you thought. You liked it then?
I kind of enjoyed it, and
good, sure.
I found it had kind of a tattletale thing to it, especially dealing with Robert Plant.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I do like that aspect of it. There's something about it. Almost seemed like it. There's some things that HBO puts on, and it seems like it's not born out of inspiration; it's born out of research. You know, and it's like the guys down in R&D have determined that we need a blank. And so there are times I think that's why some of the series that they pop on HBO just don't work for me. But if I'm thinking of the same thing you are, you can never go wrong with a great backstage, story about rock and roll bands. So I'll join in that. Let me get to Thomas, who's in La Jolla on Coast to Coast. Thomas?
Hi, Ian. I always appreciate your interviews. Great interview with Harvey. Thank you so much. You ask all the right questions. I had a quick question, Ian, and it's about a movie. Okay. And recently, the third, it's about Frank Herbert's Dune. And I was wondering if you saw the latest version of Dune. There's been two previous versions of Dune. And I was wondering what you thought about that. And for the audience, Dune is a novel by Frank Herbert, written in 1964. And, paranormal and...
sure.
Yeah. And so I was wondering what you thought of this latest version.
I will tell you that when I used to go to bed at night, my older brother, he was 7 years older than me, used to read. That was our bedtime book, and he would read chapters of Dune to me. And in my head, the version I have of that book has never been matched by any movie. Although there are moments when it's like, oh, that's cool. And so I've been meaning to sit down and watch beginning to end the new one. I think the cast is really good, right? In the new version of Dune.
Yes.
So in the Dune saga, right, set in the way distant future, which one is your favorite?
Well, I think the most recent version has possibility, okay? But I recommend everybody to read the book. From
that's the point.
Or get the Audio Renaissance audiobook, which is the complete book. It's out of London. And
I would do that.
Shakespearean actors who read the novel.
Oh, I would really enjoy that. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff I think Frank Herbert is the kind of guy that, his work really stands the test because I think he's been copied, and he was an original, I think, but he has since, you see a lot of the things that are in Dune have gotten reused in other movies, and it's like, oh, they ripped that off from Dune. All right. Thank you so much. We'll go to Steve in Texas on a wild card line on Coast to Coast AM for Open Lines. Steve?
Hey, Mr. Punnett.
Hey.
I guess I nicknamed you EP. You know about all the albums out there.
Well, yeah, technically, of course, IP, but that never sounds as good, does it?
Oh, okay.
No, it's okay. Because I think EP sounds better than IP. So yeah, I think that's good.
Hey, I saw the Rolling Stones in 1981 on Halloween Day at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
They played with the Fabulous Thunderbirds,
yeah,
ZZ Top, and then the Rolling Stones. The thing that pissed me off, though, Mick Jagger wore a Philadelphia Eagles jersey.
In Dallas.
Everybody in there was like, what the hell?
Right. That's funny. Yeah, I know Cowboys fans. I think Cowboys fans hate the Eagles more than they hate the old team, formerly known as the Redskins.
Yeah, they're in the same division, and
I know, but I think they actually. I mean, I know a lot of people from Dallas. In fact, Texas Christian is in town this weekend to play K-State, and there's this general hatred for Washington, but they go really ape when you talk about, that Jalen Hurts is 5 times the quarterback that Dak Prescott will ever be, and I will maintain that. But I mean, at the same time, I know it really hurt. That's very funny. I wonder if he knew. I wonder if that's why he did it.
Did that on purpose, and I was.
Yeah.
I saw the Herman's Hermits in '67 at the Ohio State Fair, and I saw the Bee Gees, I think, in '68 at the Ohio State. And I loved the British invasion,
Right.
And when Mick did that, I was 21 years old, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's very funny.
One thing I want to ask you, though,
yeah.
You cover all this stuff. I would love for you to do a show on, have you ever heard of Crack the Sky?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they had one. To me, they had one great album, and then the other ones are okay. But
a friend of mine gave me a compilation CD, and it's unbelievable that the subjects they covered back in the '70s is like what's going on now. Transgenderism, nuclear war, all this stuff. They were unbelievable, and the music was so technical and so It was just unbelievable.
They were, for people that don't know Crack the Sky, they were a progressive or prog rock band of the early 70s, and they much more in the mold of, say, like the Moody Blues in their artsiness. But they pull it off. Other people are imitators, and I thought Crack the Sky was cool. So, yeah.
One more I would love you to do is Mark Farner of Grand Funk.
In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
I would love for you to do that. I looked him up on YouTube lately and looked at a whole bunch of his stuff, and the guy, it was just a nuts American band. So I'd love for you to cover one of the two American.
I don't sing publicly very often, but when I do, I will sing Mark Farner's version and Grand Funk's version of Some Kind of Wonderful. I think that his vocal on Some Kind of Wonderful is just, it's magic. So, yep, I'm with you. Okay, so this is fun. This is open lines. You just kind of never know what's going to happen next. But it doesn't have to be on any subject we've covered so far. In fact, I encourage you to take us in a new direction. David's in L.A. on Coast to Coast. David?
I want to ask you a question about the Bible in the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel. Let's see, it's chapter 15, verses 1 through 3, and then verses 7. It says, God ordered King Saul to go into this land and kill everyone, men, women, children, babies. Yep. They were evil. Now, the innocent babies, you have to assume 1 month old, 1 week old baby, 1 year old baby. Do you think that makes God a murderer, or do you think it's a rational, righteous reason that God did that, or do you believe that God didn't order that?
It's a really good question. So, because there's a couple of those, right? There's later on we see something similar in the Sinai after the Exodus, and of course there's the famous the idea of the binding of Jacob and whatever. Here's what I think. I know people will hate me for it, but I've spent a lot of time with this. And what's interesting, especially like in the Quran, which has many similar stories but told a little bit differently, and the way the rabbis interpret those stories in the companion works to the Hebrew Bible, I think that those are exaggerations, and I think the language was intended to strike fear, or intended, which you could argue is a form of terrorism, or that it was something which gets told over time, but was not actually a news event that was recorded. Second Samuel's got some stuff like that too. So I don't know. How about you?
Well, I read the Bible. I'm agnostic, by the way. I don't know if there's a God or not. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. Right. There's a lot of other. By the way, there's one host. I don't know if it's you that's like studied the Bible, maybe even an ordained minister, or just no theology. Is that you? I don't
think there's any other person who's on the air on Coast to Coast who has a Master's of Divinity. I could be wrong.
Okay, so you're not an expert on the Bible, you would say?
No. I don't know. Expert is relative because everybody who studies the Bible. Like I said, I was just doing a deep dive on something from 2 Samuel the other day. I think so. I kind of live it all the time. I don't go 2 weeks at a university and teach it, but it comes up a lot. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I mean.
Now, the Bible, I read the whole Bible. The one I read is called the New Living Translation.
Right.
It's supposed to be a true translation, true true to the original writings, the Hebrew Bible, Greek Bible, Dead Sea Scrolls, all that stuff, Aramaic writings. So, and it's got scholars. It tells you, it's got translators and people.
Sure.
So, I would tend to trust that that's the true translation.
Well, wait. It's not a matter that the translation is wrong. It's just whether the story is passed down. As you say, as you come to the fact that, does this make God a murderer? Well, I think what it does. I think what the story points out is that as the story is related, and then later, after years of being told around campfires, it's finally written down.
Changes.
I think so. I think there's so many examples of that. And I'm not ashamed of it. A lot of people feel like, that there was somebody with a green eye shade and, a typewriter that was taking everything down as it happened. And I don't think history backs that up. But and New Living Translation is, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Okay.
It's not bad.
For instance, in the Old Testament, it says several people saw God. You know that.
Yeah.
In the New Testament, it says no one has ever seen God.
Well, but they didn't see all of God. Like, Moses sees God's butt. He sees God walking past.
It says that Moses met with God face to face, talked to God.
Right.
As one would speak to a friend. So he saw God's face. We have to assume that.
No, I don't think that. See, again, now we have to be careful about the way in which we interpret. I've used this example all the time. There are expressions that get used. Okay. Now, how literally do we take them?
Now, it seems like God would want to be clear and make it say what it means.
No.
I don't know.
Here's the point: is symbolic language, metaphoric language. Mm-hmm. It's all throughout the scriptures, and not just through the Hebrew Bible or the Greek New Testament, the Christian Bible. It's through almost every tradition.
Yeah.
Kind of exaggerates.
Like God, if this is supposed to be the Bible that we're supposed to live with, our guide for life, and to me, it should be plain. It should be on the level where a fifth grader could understand.
That's how guys think.
You should not have to interpret it and figure out the meaning. It should be plain. That to me, and some people say, well, men got it wrong.
No.
Why would God allow his
No. I say tough noogies. Nothing is that clear. I mean, we have film of JFK being murdered. Okay? And people still argue about it. So it's not a matter of clarity. I think we also have to look at purpose and what was the original purpose versus how we're using it now. But I appreciate your call, and it's always interesting to hear different perspectives, especially one from an atheist on Coast to Coast. So all right, so where does that leave us in the time that we had to have time? I think we have time for Don on the international line in Canada. Don?
Hi, Ian.
Hey.
So I have to say for the Rolling Stones, I went to one of their concerts up here in Canada. Worst concert I was ever been to in my life. I went to
Why?
After that, and I was cured.
Why?
It could have been anybody up there singing, and the drummer was just terrible. It was just bad. And we had we were front up seats and stuff like that.
Oh God. Sorry.
Anyway, but the best concert I've been to would have to say, well, I like creative arts festivals, but I'd have to say U2.
I thought U2 was a great concert.
Yeah, they always perform very well.
Yeah,
I've been to three of their concerts. They do really well. But
I saw U2 in a driving rain play outdoors. I mean, it was pounding rain, and they only finally called the concert when the lightning showed up. But it was still really cool. It was a really good show. So I'm with you on that. All right, so that brings us up to the bottom of the hour. Listen, let me make a point again to say it's kind of fun for the regs to take a night off, and we're hearing some new voices, and I like that. Let's keep that up to the end of the show because a lot of people don't have a chance to get through. And suddenly it's Friday night. They got a phone in their hand. We'll give you the numbers that you need coming up in just a second. It'll all come together. It'll be beautiful. Also, I just want to say, again, thank you to the Kansas Association of Broadcasters. Coast to Coast runs on many stations in Kansas, and I am honored this Sunday night to get the Distinguished Service Award and to be in the KAB Hall of Fame, which I think is really fun. So I'll post some photos on that on my X page, my Twitter page, coming up next week. Coast to Coast AM, this is Ian Punnett. Buddy is in Denver. It's open lines on Coast to Coast. Hey, buddy.
Good evening.
Evening.
Yeah, this new book that's coming out that you guys are talking about tonight, will it have anything positive to say about Brian Jones?
I don't think it says anything negative. Why?
Well, it just seems like,
it's a book of photography.
Richards and Mick Jagger, they always tend to demonize him. And sure, he had faults, but they didn't.
No, I don't. I think you're reading that kind of harshly. First of all, it's a book of photography, so, there's that. Secondly, it's, I think there's some resentment that Mick and Keith have. And I think it's the resentment that often comes from either bandmates or from family members when somebody can't get control of their addictions. And they're perfectly willing to drag down everybody around them until there's some sort of break. And I don't think there was any antipathy in that way toward him personally. I think they all were. I think Mick Jagger and Keith Richards both were rooting for him. But if you're going to be the guy who, you ever seen the film clips that he's in for the recording of Sympathy for the Devil? He's not even there. They have to bring in Mick Taylor and these other people to finish the tracks because he's not even participating. So I don't know. I don't know that that's negative. I think that's just kind of truthful.
But will the book have anything good to say about him?
Okay, it's a book of photography. So will it have anything? If that's your question, you want to keep repeating it. I don't think photography is positive or negative in that sense. The Chronicles of the Rolling Stones will include that, and I think we'll just have to leave it there. Larry is in Nashville on Coast to Coast AM. Larry, how are things in Nash Vegas?
Hey. Oh, Ian, you and I talked, about 6 months ago, and I said Larry from Nashville, but I was in Florida. I don't know if you remember. I took some bands down there.
Cool.
Do you remember? Maybe
I don't remember that. I have to be honest, but
okay.
I'm all about Nashville, so you know.
That's not the reason why I called, but
no, it's the reason I love hearing it from Nashville. It was a great city. I loved living there.
Yeah, I'm back in Nashville, and I know you're all about rock and roll, Ian, and that's one thing that I've always loved about you. That you brought rock and roll into Coast to Coast is
little edge anyway. Yeah,
as well as doing truth, but this is the reason why I'm calling, man. When
okay.
If you go back and listen to us in January, and I'll tell you,
yeah.
I talked about alpha gal syndrome that I have.
Oh yeah, no, that I remember because I had to look it up afterward too.
Yeah. Okay. So,
explain what that is.
I was dealing with it back then, and truthfully, I got bit again in June. Here in Nashville by a Lone Star tick.
Oh, no.
And, now I am 30 times more sensitive than I was.
Oh, gosh.
6 months ago.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
I'm at my wit's end, you know.
Yeah.
I'm about to actually, I'm going to California in about a week to get off every medication that I'm on because every medication I take makes me sick daily. I would love it if you guys would do a show on alpha-gal syndrome.
Yeah.
Because it's on the rise. And
that's fair. Yeah, I remember looking it up afterward. And
yeah.
I remember, yeah. So you say 30 times more sensitive. So that's just like pain needles or photosensitivity, or tell me more about that.
No. So I got my initial bite was in August of 2020. I got Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and I was treated for that. And I mean, which included like a hospital stay. You know, they monitored my alpha-gal syndrome, which there's a specific antibody that they need to test for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, you know, at a level of 0.1217. And just a couple months after I talked to you in Florida, I got tested and I was almost gone. I was almost done. My levels have gone down to almost what they called, you know, non-existent.
Oh, gosh.
And then I got bit again in June by the Lone Star tick. And within the past 3 months, like I just smell bacon, Ian, and I've gone to the ER because of it. You know,
wait. You smell bacon, meaning you can't get that smell out of your.
Just the alpha galactose sugar is in grease. That what makes meat and bacon smell good. Okay?
Yeah,
and that is the thing that sets me off.
Oh gosh!
And I'm not alone. That's the thing. I'm not.
No. I yeah. You know, it's funny. This part I remember because I'd never heard it. I mean, I knew about the Lone Star tick thing, and that was different than deer ticks and that whatever. But the pervasiveness of it to me isn't as concerning as the fact that it has a. You tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I remember reading at the time there's a high level of suicide ideation that comes over time because of its chronic. Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
So, you know, in the last 18 months, my wife and I have just found other people and Facebook groups and such.
Good.
And
you got to keep that conversation going, or you get too far inside your own head.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, it's gotten to the point, Ian. I'm leaving Nashville next week. I'm going to California, and because they have this thing called vegan meds that they can manufacture all the medications I need for my heart, which I'm like daily taking, like Prasugrel.
Yeah.
I'm on Prasugrel because I had a heart attack in May. Just a couple months after I talked to you. And that medication contains an animal ingredient. Okay?
Yeah, like a lot of pills do.
So I have to take the medicine, but every night I wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. with allergic reactions.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can relate to that.
And, I've sadly kind of turned to alcohol as my solution.
Yeah, that's not going to help.
I know it's not the right solution, but I'm
you're
going
just
to a place out in California. I know I'm kind of making myself
no, but do they specialize in that? Is that so they can at least get you some comfort if they can't cure it?
In helping getting medicine that is animal free.
Interesting.
Which they can't do here in Nashville.
Right.
But, California apparently is a little different. And they have these things called vegan meds.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Ian, you got to do a show on alpha.
I will. I'll look into it right now. I think that's fair. You reminded me of it, and I don't know if I ever sent a memo on that, but I will tonight, and so I appreciate that, and I'll find the link, and I hope your situation gets better. I really do. At least improves. I'm not, asking for anything that's impossible, but improvement when you've got something chronic like that still, is a world of difference. Michael is in Kansas on Coast to Coast. Michael? No, not there, Michael. Steve is in Indiana on Coast to Coast on the first-time caller line. Go ahead, Steve.
That's the bad thing about hanging on and listening to all these other callers. You call about one thing and then something else comes up. I got caught in what they call a tick bloom. It's when just you walk through the woods and you're just covered.
Oh.
And that was back in June, I think it was. And
what kind?
I had 6 bites on me. I've been bitten hundreds of times. I'm lucky as hell that I didn't end up like him.
Well, or for that matter, even, your standard other things that can come. It doesn't even have to be as bad as that alpha-gal thing. But, yeah. Wow. Okay.
But anyways, that bumper you played, the last time I heard that was probably 40 years ago on XRP.
Je suis un rockstar? The 1981.
But the last time you were on, you were talking to a guy about American Monsters or something, And, somebody mentioned Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
So I'm a retired steel worker, but the building that we used to have our shop in was over 100 years old, and there's all kinds of little shops here and there. So one of the rooms we used to use for a pipe machine was an old electronics or electrical shop, and so they would have a bunch of parts just wrapped up in newspaper. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these little companies would manufacture their parts, ship them out. They just wrap them in local newspaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'd have time, killing time, whatever, I'd look through these old papers, and just read the old headlines from 50, 60 years ago. But there was a foreman in that building that me and him used to talk sometimes about, because he was really into UFOs, but we talk about other things. And we got to talk about Thunderbirds. And he knew a little bit, I knew a little bit. And so a couple days later, I'm in that room, getting an old newspaper out. I think it was a Kansas City Star. And I start reading, just going through it. And there's an article about, I think it was in Joliet, Illinois. This woman was hanging her wash in her backyard, and she heard a scream, and her son and his buddy were out playing in the yard. And she looks, and there's this giant bird that's got her son by the T-shirt.
Right. I saw this, actually. They did a recreation of this, I think, on Unsolved Mysteries.
Right. I saw that. But anyways, she reaches up and grabs him, gets him back away from the bird. And so here it is, like 3 or 4 days before that, I was talking to this guy about this story, and here's the story in the newspaper. And I think it was 1971 was the date on the paper. And so I took it down to him. It was just falling apart, crumbling and stuff. I said, check this out, man. We were just talking about this, and here it is in the newspaper.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty wild.
It is and I, we had somebody on talking about it one night who had witnessed, so other than the one you talked about where the guy said he saw two of them, like a one male and one female. But this guest was like legit scientist guy, and he was saying that there are one of the reasons why if large birds, these giant birds, and he named a couple of different species, but thunderbirds put them all into that category. One of the reasons why they're not spotted is because of forced perspective on Earth. That when people look up, a lot of, depending on where the bird is, the smaller birds can look larger and larger birds can look smaller. And he said that's sort of the nature of that one, that there's something to measure it against, like a tree, or something like that.
Okay, listen. I started talking to this guy about thunderbirds because I had an experience right before that. I was out here where I'm at now, clearing my lot, in some woods. I was going to build a house here, and a thunderstorm hit. And so it just turned everything to muck, and I couldn't do any more work. And I was hanging out there. I was going to go to a buddy's house a couple hours later when he got off work. So I was just hanging around. And it started clearing up, and I looked. And I'm a duck hunter, so I look up in the sky a lot. So anyways, I'm looking up there, and I could see these big birds, just wheeling, just got their wings stretched out, and they're just turning, And I'm looking at them, I'm like, wow, those are some big birds, And we're right here by Chicago, and I'm right under the flight path for O'Hare and Midway.
Right. I know that you're just off, 294 or wherever that is?
149.
149.
So anyways,
there you go.
We got these, planes flying over constantly, the big planes and the puddle jumpers. And I'm looking at these birds, and here comes a puddle jumper, right? Flying by. He's not ready to land or anything. He's not that low. But I could see the difference between that commuter plane and those birds, and they were much higher, than that the commuter plane,
Right.
They were probably at 3,000 feet, 4,000.
Right.
These birds were way higher than that,
And they still had that kind of profile. That's great. Well, let me get to one other call before the top of the hour, but love that. Very interesting. And a little ironic then that probably one of those puddle jumpers flying out of O'Hare was the American Eagle, that's what they call it, right? Those little planes that by fate's flying in. And I'll do Joe from New York on Coast to Coast AM. Joe?
Hey, how's it going, Ian?
Good. How about you?
Good. Yeah, I have a Jimi Hendrix story from my friend David Brigatti of the Rascals, Eddie Brigatti and David Brigatti. Yeah. So 2 weeks before Jimi Hendrix died, Hendrix's girlfriend at the time called David Brigatti for advice on what to do in a case of overdosing. Jimmy had overdosed, and David advised her to put him in a bathtub of ice and ice water, and she was able to revive him. There's also another, the last time David Brigatti seen Jimi Hendrix alive was 2 weeks also before he passed away, and they were in a club. It was David Brigatti, Jimi Hendrix, and Tiny Tim.
Whoa. There's a collection for you. Yeah, very interesting. Well, cool when those stories have a kind of a direct contact, right? Like you know somebody who actually then really knew that story. So thank you for sharing that. All right, I think we get one more. Can we get one more, Dan? Or nope? Okay. All right. Really enjoyed Open Lines. So far, we got like about 4 different topics going, but it can be 5, 6, or 7 in the next hour or two. So feel free. That's what we're here for. The lines are open, and more importantly, I'm open to wherever you're going to take us coming up next. On Coast to Coast AM, this is Ian Punnett.